You're on mute, Ben.
I can hear Alan, but I can't hear you.
Oh, there I am.
There we go. Now we're talking.
I think everybody missed your intro there.
That's so funny. My mic was muted. I was just setting you guys up. I was showing the chart that there's been some big outperformance over here. Let me actually do that again since I was walking it through. All right, so you can see the fund has had really good outperformance the last few months. So that's why I wanted to take the opportunity to bring you guys back on board and see what's going on, what some updates are. It's story trading. We look at fundamentals, catalysts, sentiment, and technicals. We all understand the sentiment has been very, very strong for this stock because it's been grouped in, right or wrong, with the whole DWAC and now RUM kind of stocks, these Trump stocks, because of your past association building the Trump campaign app in the past. So lots of speculation around. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that question. But first, why don't you tell us what's going on, Alan? We'll start with you. And, why has the stock really been performing well? What's the update? What are we missing last few months for the people who are not paying close attention?
Yeah, so I think Randall, I, and the whole team actually focus pretty much on operational execution. And story of 2022 has really been a lot of execution. So last year when we finished the year, and I think we talked to you just shortly right after that, we had announced we expected to come out of the COVID pandemic and we would be up at least 250% year over year. We put this out to start the year from our board approved operating plan, and we got to work. And as we got to work in the first quarter, we ended up delivering up year over year. It turned out to be about 312% up year over year. At that time, we actually announced that, hey, for second quarter, instead of just being up 250%, we expect to be up more than 275%. We ended up delivering a little bit over 280% up year over year. And then at that time, we also announced we expect record revenues in the second half of 2022. And basically, when I'm saying record, I mean, literally since we've been a public company, first quarter was a record, second quarter was a record, second half of this year, we expect to be a record. And a little bit of that is obviously there was a lot of business to business and business to government work that really couldn't be done the same way that we're used to doing. But ironically, COVID and the pandemic set a backdrop of two key elements. One that you're mentioning on some of these speculative ties to DWAC or Rumble or others. But in reality, it was a lot more about digital transformation. As you know, we have a mobile cloud platform. We have focused on Apple iOS and Google Android environments for years and years. And what we saw is that the COVID pandemic actually seems to have woken up a lot of large companies and governments, realize the importance of being able to engage people wherever they are in their mobile devices. And as a result, digital transformation got accelerated. So each vertical in each part of the United States and the world have behaved a bit different. But I think what you're seeing so far this year is an excitement about us saying what we were going to do and then us going out and doing it.
Okay, great. That sounds good. And regarding going forward, obviously, we're looking at you guys bucking the market trend, but with the macro economy and inflation and all that, do you see any impact there on your business, with what's going on right now? You're in the middle of a quarter's almost over, right? Another 10 days and next quarter, any kind of commentary you can give on how that may be impacting you?
Sure, I'll start and then I'll hand off to Randall. As we see different things as we go through and engage our customers, our partners, and then obviously Wall Street. So first thing is, like, we look at inflation as being up 30% year over year. We see the headline number at high single digit, but we really don't believe that. I think anyone who's buying groceries or rent or paying their mortgages that are getting upwardly revised or literally anything from gas to just basic household goods, there's a lot of supply and inventory issues, and there's just a lot of spending issues. So two parts of our business actually focus on consumers, whether there's lockdowns, shutdowns. When we sell our Light by PhunWare high performance computing systems and also some of the PhunToken cryptocurrency that we deal with inside of our platform and our ecosystem, we see a lot of excitement around that, and a lot of people are buying independent of what's happening around us. But when we see business to business and business to government, both domestically and abroad, you see a very mixed bag of who's opened up, who's in the process of opening up. And I think what we're seeing there is that inflation hasn't really stopped people from operating. It is getting people quite cautious in where they're spending. We've seen a little bit of the uptick in the sales cycle taking a little bit longer for business to business and business to government. But at the end of the day, I think people know they're going to have to execute. And that's been especially the case in verticals like hospitality because people are traveling independent. We're seeing that in smart workplaces. We're also seeing it in healthcare, but healthcare is shifting from a pandemic era much more back to elective surgeries and other kinds of things that are more normal. So let me hand off to Randall, and he can also highlight some other things of kind of what we can control versus that which we have to observe.
Sounds good. Randall, welcome to the show. Glad to have you back.
Hey, good to talk to you again, Ben. Yeah, I think Alan hit the nail on the head in a couple of ways. I think from a company, corporate perspective, obviously we're being judicious. It's always nice when you have founders and management with so much skin in the game. We're aligned with shareholders, and so nobody's trying to do anything dilutive. When you talk about our stock, I kind of look at it like it's outperforming, but to like Alan and me, it's a hell of an entry point. I mean, you think about the actual value of the company, even the value we went out at. I think people are having an incredible opportunity to start building out a position at a price that we look at and think, God, there's a huge disconnect between what we're actually delivering to the market and what you're able to buy it for today. And we're going to right size that over the next reporting periods and a couple of years. I think what we're seeing in terms of what you're referring to, and like with inflation, for our customers, that's kind of what I want to look at. So we've got the corporate side down. We've got, we're really conservative with cash. We're really, understanding kind of, we're dilution minded, but our customers are trying to figure out how to drive revenue and profitability. And so they're looking for new innovative ways to leverage technology to do just that. So take hospitality, for example. For those of you who don't know, we launched at Atlantis down in the Bahamas. It's one of the largest luxury resorts in the world. They're looking at, how do I go beyond just having somebody book a room? How do I get more revenue per guest? And oh, by the way, if I can make their lives better while they're on-prem, that's even better. And we were able to do that. Atlantis made $50,000 through the app they licensed from us the first week. They made over $500,000 in the first few months. That is the future of every hospitality brand on the planet. And we've already talked about that a little bit. Alan mentioned it in our earnings call. We should have some good announcements here coming soon when we can kind of disclose it and talk about it. But we're working with another, world, recognized hospitality brand on figuring out how to deliver more to customers. Think about how do you book things on site? How do you find your way around properties? How do you discover things you might have missed out on? How do you introduce a buy now button in the real world? That's digital transformation. That's what we're able to do. So it's not just a nice to have, it's a gotta have. And you see it in healthcare. You see, struggling with how do you get patients to appointments on time? How do you dynamically load balance clinician schedules? That costs the US healthcare system $150 billion a year. And so when you're thinking about inflation and you're thinking about cash needs to go further and you need to generate more revenue and you need to keep your customers happy, you have to figure out how to deliver tech-enabled experiences in the real world. And to be able to do that, you have to have a technology layer like the one PhunWare built that unifies all the disparate solutions that everybody else already has. And I'm going to end with, you're going to see this in politics. I know everybody's excited about politics. Forget about the meme stocks for a second. I know it's hard. People should be looking for transformational businesses. That if I'm putting my investment dollars to work, I think very few people truly have the wherewithal to understand technical analysis. And so if you don't really know what you're doing as a trader, you do need to understand fundamentals, and you need to understand who are you betting in, who's the team, what are they endeavoring to do. And so when I think about politics, forget about DWAC for a second. I just think about people are tired of algorithmic, content distribution. You don't even have to be a conspiracy theory to wonder, is my content as a politician getting to the right people who are going to be making these decisions? Because guess what? Millions of people do not make the decisions in this country. It's thousands of people in very specific counties. And so every politician on both sides of the aisle is trying to figure out, how do I use platforms to better engage my constituents and ensure that they're getting the content that I want them to see. And that's digital transformation as well. Alan described it very well. So let's use Facebook and Twitter as top of funnel. Let's get you on a platform like the one we developed for President Trump. And let's let you have your own center of gravity to better engage, your voters. And so I think that's going to be the future, whether it's inflation or not. How do you get more out of your resources? How do you reach your target audience better? And then how do you manage and monetize that audience?
Great. You brought up a couple points I wanted to ask you guys about. You mentioned the catalyst coming up. I'm wondering if tell us a little more about that catalyst, but how important that's going to be to you when it does happen in terms of the size of it, right? Like right now, I'm looking at your revenue. Your revenue looks to be $5.5 million a quarter. So what kind of size opportunity is this for you compared to your current revenue run rate?
Yeah. So I think when we look at all these things, so you have to separate like what are the big drivers from then the revenue. So when we think about the revenue, our goal now is to get back to doubling all the time. So when we were getting out of COVID, it was like, how do we double the company next year? And we're going to do better than that. How do we double again the year after that and then do better than that? So our goal organically is to get back to a very aggressive high growth rate and focus on investing in a way that we can actually deliver those results. So when we look at it, though, across different customer sets and different verticals, obviously we're leading into the midterms now. 2022 will be, an initial little foray into what's going to happen in politics and advocacy. That'll get supersized dynamically shortly thereafter as we start leading into the 2024 elections and the big prize of the White House. So we expect that in each successive quarter, we've announced our deal with Brad Parscale and Campaign Nucleus. But if I separate that out a bit, that's just one vertical, right? Advocacy and politics. When you jump into hospitality, we've gotten not only Atlantis, Bahamas that Randall mentioned, we have two other major international hospitality brands. We're looking forward in October next month to announce formally at least the first of those. And what we're excited about on those is those are things that turn into 7-digit wins that are probably going to turn into low 8-digit wins, because the way they all work are similar. You deploy at a property or you deploy at a brand within the larger company, and then you get success on a number of properties, and then you roll it out to more of those properties, more regions, both domestically and abroad, and more brands, because a lot of these brands have multiple brands underneath them, especially in the high-end resort domain. So we see a lot of tailwind around hospitality. We see a lot of tailwind around advocacy and politics. We see huge tailwinds around healthcare, as now most of the healthcare institutions have to get out of just COVID, pandemic. They got to get back to just health and outcomes, and better outcomes for the healthcare provided before you're there, while you're on site, and after you leave. That includes capacity management, telehealth, and a lot of other things that people learned through the pandemic. And as Randall said, it comes back to, how do I improve patient outcomes? How do I increase the amount of revenue? How do I increase the yield? Because obviously, if you're doing remote monitoring of vitals, as an example, there are a lot of people that don't have to show up physically at those healthcare facilities. Others are fine, and they can be monitored remotely, and that allows them to see more patients. As we really get excited about next year and beyond, corporate campus, we expect the smart campus environment, smart workplace is going to really accelerate again, like we did with Norfolk Southern down in Atlanta. They took advantage of the pandemic to say, you know what, we have a new corporate headquarters in Atlanta. We're going to deploy it. And what we're going to use Phunware for is to be, an app that doesn't replace everything else, but synthesizes everything else. So there are investments they made in networking equipment, network, hardware, enterprise software, and we can provide a means for people to digest all of that for customers, for partners and employees, and so forth. So I do think that we're going to get a lot of tailwind at our back across each vertical in the aggregate. And then the overall drivers to really hit at something we talk about frequently, the intersection of mobile, cloud, big data, and blockchain is just at its early stages. And when we talk about Rumble and we talk about Truth Social and TMTG and we talk about Phunware, What are we really talking about? We're talking about everyone worldwide who want to be able to consume the content they want. They don't want censorship. They don't want fact checkers and contact checkers. They want the ability to be able to have conversations. As Randall said, engaging constituents, that's another part of it. But everyone needs to just simply respect the First Amendment, allow people to engage, and people don't want a big brother, whether it's Twitter or Meta or Google or Amazon or anyone, to decide what we'll do, when we'll do it, how we'll do it, who we'll do it with, and by God, what can we see or not see, and what information is acceptable for us to digest. That's the difference between narrative and propaganda and what we would view democracy, which is an open exchange of ideas. We may not all agree, but we sure as heck should be having the conversation.
Okay, great. We got a couple nice comments I threw up on the screen there. So what I really want to drill down to when we talk about fundamentals, when you invest in microcap companies, the whole key is getting to the point where you're profitable. So you mentioned something about these contracts being 7 figures, low 8 figures. It looks to me like you're losing about 5 million a quarter, bringing in about 5.5 million a quarter. So roughly, tell me if I'm wrong, you'd have to probably double your revenue to get to a place where you're about cash flow neutral. Does that sound about right?
Give or take, that's about right. I think, Randall can comment on some of these, but we also say, and do this on the earnings call, please, you have to separate a lot of noise around a lot of Bitcoin and Ethereum and digital assets that we have on our balance sheet. We wrote our Bitcoin down to about 17,700. We wrote our Ethereum down to about 900. All of those look like effects on earnings per share, but in reality, they're non-cash impairment charges because there is no mark-to-market accounting. So even last quarter, as an example, it said we lost like 17 cents a share. The reality is we hit what the analyst expected. We actually just marked down about 12 cents per share, just tied to digital assets. We're hoping FASB and the SEC change the rules because there's an active market. We should be able to mark to market, but that's just not how it is. Relative to the other part of the operation, let me let Randall dive into that as well.
Yeah, I've used this analogy before. I hear you. But there are very real decisions that get made between, are there certain things that we could do to check the micro cap box and say, look, we're profitable faster? Sure. I can not hire more salespeople. We can not, build out indirect channels. We can not cover some of the costs for integrations into large, technology partners like Carrier. Do we want to do that? Absolutely not. Amazon spent 10 years under $100 building an unbeatable competitive advantage that nobody paid attention to. And everybody threw, stones at them and said, oh, you're not profitable. What are you doing? Why are you building warehouses in the middle of nowhere? What's this data center for? You're a bookstore. What are you doing? And then everybody woke up to an on-demand economy and they didn't know what to do. And Amazon ate the world. And so we are going to exist in a world where just like Amazon delivers on-demand products, goods, and services, you will have on-demand experiences. And you will have to have the technology to deliver that. And we have uniquely built that. And we are uniquely building that out. And so there is an opportunity. We live in an on-demand economy that has limited attention span. And so every brand in every industry needs to get very specific content in front of people when they are most likely willing to pay attention. And ideally, you need to introduce an ability for them to take some sort of action. And so I would rather own that space. I would rather land with Atlantis. I would rather land with large hospitality brands. I would rather land with, healthcare systems and then begin expanding our revenue and expanding our feature set, being that sticky technology enabling layer versus making a bunch of decisions right now to appease the horde and, check some box on profitability. Could we be profitable faster? Sure. But right now, we are playing to win, and we're a small cap stock masquerading as a micro cap stock. Make no mistake.
Okay. So do you have like some sort of internal plan or guidance you can give in terms of what's your target in terms of when you think you could get profitable?
Well, using the logic you just said before, our goal is to double. So if we get up to 20 to $25 million, I think we put out guidance at 25, expect to hit it. So next target after that is to try to double again. again, we set aggressive internal targets for how we do that. We know, when we say that if we just grew at 30% or more year over year, we'd be in the top 8 of every publicly traded company in the world. So when we're talking about putting up, 275 or 250 or even 100%, that's substantially higher than what that looks like. So I think that we're focused organically on trying to double to get to that number that you were forecasting and saying, when do you kind of break even, so that we're done by the end of next year. In the interim, we're going to be opportunistic about some inorganic growth because, I kind of jokingly say about the U.S. markets at certain times compared to the rest of the world. It's not really that the U.S. markets are fantastic or phenomenal. It's kind of that we suck less than what's devastating going on around the world. So that's not going to last forever, especially when we keep printing the kind of money we do. But we know that it's a big world out there, and everything that's happening in the United States with digital transformation is needed identically around the world. So we're going to look at opportunistic, ways that we can inorganically enter Europe, Asia, and South America through likely inorganic growth. It's just a lot easier to buy something that's accretive, that plugs in, that we can then flow our model through. Much, much easier than like, hey, we're going to open a place in Galway, Ireland. We're going to hire a country manager and build from scratch. That just seems less efficient. And for anything that's happened in the US markets, it's happening at least 5, 10, 20 times worse often in other emerging markets. And we think it's going to be very attractive for other even publicly traded companies around the world that aren't on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange to see that there's a much bigger opportunity. We have tons of volume, lots of liquidity, a big following, a great brand, and a big growth story over the next 10 years.
10 years. Okay. So kind of related question, because Randall was touching on, the Amazon kind of business model of investing and not really looking at profitability in the near term. So what is your, I don't know what kind of share ownership either of you have, but what are your personal goals for the company, your exit strategy? Are you looking to sell the company at some point, basically be a growth company, maybe not necessarily focus on profitability and flip the company? Or are you more interested in getting to profitability and, I don't know, maybe having dividends at one point? Well, realistically, no one really does dividends in the stock market unless you're huge. But give me some thought process behind how you think of that.
Yeah, so both Randall and I's first reaction would be if someone shows up with a bid that's high enough. Obviously, our fiduciary obligation is to take the bid to the board. We did have someone try to buy us when the markets got very disrupted during COVID. And they tried to provide, a small premium above what we were trading at, but it was a song for what we believe we're worth and what the opportunity is. So, we took that opportunity to the board, and the board actually rejected it in less than a minute. So it didn't take very long to realize, hey, there's people that are going to be big and public and opportunistic. So we get that. But if there's something that's real, I mean, we are here at the guise of shareholders, right? So very unlike what kind of happened in the whole Twitter Elon Musk thing that was going on. If anyone actually put a real bid on, we would actually take it to our board and look at it. With that being said, I can tell you, I founded Phunware. I've already sold 3 companies before I started Phunware. Our team set up Phunware to raise money, scale a business, and take it public on either the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ from day one. And it took 10 years, but we got there. Now we're here, and we're just building a great standalone business. And then we'll see what happens. It was tough on not just us, lots of people outside of maybe Zoom and some meal kit delivery and some others during COVID. I think everyone got punched in the face in different ways. But the good news is I think that's kind of behind us. And now it's time to move forward and execute. And we'd like to build a big, massive standalone company. We'd like to win the mobile computing era that's subsequently followed past technology waves. And there's a lot of room to grow. To your point about dividend, I'll just make one comment about that. Yeah, typically we're, till we get very profitable and take advantage of our tax loss carry forwards, which give us hundreds of millions of dollars against profit to not have to pay taxes. That's a huge benefit as well on NOLs. A more important thing is we have not one, but 2 cryptocurrencies. We're the first publicly traded company in the history of the world to launch its own. PhunCoin is a fully regulated security token. We expect it to go live on the securitized ATS here in the next probably 30, 60 days, now that we have opinion letters
Wow.
getting closed out. That's a big deal because what can we do with a financial instrument? We can dividend. Could be Phunware stock, could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, PhunToken, could be other sorts of cryptocurrencies. It could even be fee sharing within the customer data platform that we have against our ecosystem. But that will exclusively trade at Securitize. It's fully regulated in the same way that we're regulated to trade FUN on NASDAQ. So when we think about dividends, we're probably not going to be thinking about it from the context of how you believe, publicly traded companies, you own it to get that dividend. We're going to have other digital assets, which have huge value that we'll be able to add to our balance sheet. And we expect that some of those ecosystem assets may even be worth the same or more than what our entire market cap is.
Okay, great. I want to let the audience know I have a few more questions, but after that, if there's time, we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you do have questions, you can put it in the Rumble chat there, where most of you are, or the YouTube chat. I see those coming through as well. So let me just take a couple more for kind of related question, but can you tell me, you have an ATM, right? So one of the benefits of being like a meme stock and having that sentiment benefit of being associated with DWAC is you're able to, did I do that? Or I don't think I hit Randall out. He must have just dropped off. Okay, so maybe he'll be back, but you'll,
grab it for you.
Yeah, no problem. But you're able to raise money via ATM, which I personally find very attractive, because one of the problems with micro cap companies or small cap companies is that they often have to do deals with the devils, with these vulture investment banks, where they short the stock and they cover on the offering, or they want these warrants or deep discounts. Sure. So you don't have to do that. So can you give us an update on your balance sheet, kind of room you have on the ATM, and how you use that?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. So yeah, you're right. So ironically, when we were a private company, we were boring and vanilla. We raised $100 million, but we did so. Each round was successively higher in valuation. We basically set terms and conditions for all of the series A, B, C, D stock. When we went public, 100% of the preferred and common just consolidated down and was converted into PHUN, and we started trading. So now we do have a $200 million shelf that's outstanding. We have $100 million, which is an ATM with H.C. Wainwright. We always announce specifically what we've done up through the quarters we've announced. As of the second quarter, we hadn't used the ATM. So we try to think about optionality and flexibility, because to your point, like, we have zero interest. I mean, I'm the founder. I haven't sold a share of stock outside of mandatory like RSU vesting, where they take the taxes out. Like, I haven't actually sold a share since I've been in the company, public or private. That's the case with basically the whole team that works here. So when you have that happening, no one cares about dilution more than we do. Because if we're issuing shares, we're diluting ourselves, we're hurting ourselves, and we haven't even sold anything. So we have this $200 million shelf. We have a $100 million ATM. As of the last quarter, when we announced, we hadn't used anything. The one thing we did announce subsequent to our second quarter that we filed was we basically took debt. We took about $12.5 million of debt, where we effectively refinanced. We got some great terms that we have put out. We had worked at a small level when we bought Light a year ago to take a small amount of debt. That worked great with the group that we worked with. So we basically refinanced it, gave us more flexibility so that we didn't have to issue equity. We think that our stock was undervalued. When we went public, as it was at 300 million, we're trading at a little more than half of that. So we basically look at ourselves as a small cap company masquerading as a micro cap. And we took that debt on basically just to give optionality and flexibility. The other thing is we have both PhunCoin and PhunToken, which are these digital assets that we have, and we have the option to sell those, which would be completely non-dilutive. And when we do things like that, like, Wall Street has never seen that before. Now, we also have 650 plus Bitcoin, 750 plus Ethereum, even separate from our PhunCoin and PhunToken holdings. Why does that matter? Well, code is law in the world of decentralized finance and digital assets. The most pristine collateral on earth remains Bitcoin. We could take our Bitcoin, we haven't done it, Haven't done a bit of it, but we could take it, just drop it in a smart contract, actually get 4 to 6% interest rates. I'll tell you that there's no traditional even facility, yet alone venture debt or other sorts of debt instruments that look anything like that. So we haven't done that. We don't have to do that, but we have the ability to just sort of check in our Bitcoin, post collateral, take cash, and pay a very modest interest rate. And the code is law. We also have options with things like Bitcoin. You can go to Silvergate Bank, much like MicroStrategy if we wanted to. We haven't done it. But you can get from 4 to 8% interest rate directly from a digital asset bank that deals with cryptocurrency. So the net of the whole thing is we're not going to issue warrants to anybody. We're not going to do any stupid structures or sweeteners. We don't have to do a PIPE or a discounted raise. Like if we were going to sell at the market, it's a 2% cost of capital, goes directly at the market price. And again, we don't have to use it at all, but it's there if we wanted to. And we do all this to preserve as much optionality and flexibility as humanly possible, because while everyone's pandemic, we'll have to see what happens in the economy. I think we're already in a recession. That's what 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP means. But we're going to execute. And the nice part of that is it should be very protective towards retail and institutional investors, because we don't have to do anything stupid. Proudest moment at the H.C. Wainwright, conference I had was meeting with debt providers and just saying, your offers aren't good enough. We're happy to consider what you're doing, but your terms suck. So find somebody else, because we're not doing that.
Nice. That's great. All right. Got a question I'm about to post from YouTube, which was actually coincidentally related to my next question. You mentioned Brad Parscale and Nucleus. I just want, before we get to this detailed question on YouTube, I just want clarification. At this point, that has nothing to do with the publicly traded company AIAD, correct? AI
That's
advertising?
correct. So Brad, back in the last election cycle, had a company called Parscale Strategies, which was a business that focused very much on digital and other sorts of advertising and campaign-oriented things. And Brad sold, those assets in that company effectively. That became AIAD. And he's still a shareholder. He can speak to that much better than I can, but he's a large shareholder of it. But to my knowledge, he doesn't have any operating role or governance role or even advisory role. He's just a shareholder, and there's a full team that's executing what he had used in the past under AIAD. And then separate from AIAD, he had set up Campaign Nucleus. And Campaign Nucleus is basically a new productization that I think if you asked him directly, it's kind of like Salesforce or a CRM system, but uniquely built from the ground up for advocacy and political campaigns. And what he wanted to do, and especially as you saw, about a year ago, where Salesforce made some decisions with the Republican Committee or the GOP, where they basically said, hey, we're going to provide all this, internal information, to the January 6th committee or other sort of interested parties. A lot of the Republican and GOP folks said, hey, we don't want you giving up our, information. And Salesforce has sort of stayed out of the political arena to fill that void by building out the equivalent of a very advanced CRM system, very uniquely tailored for advocacy and political campaigns. And that's really what he's been doing with Campaign Nucleus.
Okay, good. So I appreciate that clarification. I don't want anyone going out and running and buying AIAD stock because specifically of what you said here, this doesn't really impact that stock. Campaign Nucleus is separate.
Sure.
All right, we got another question from the audience here. How many Bitcoin and ETH does Phunware now hold?
Yeah, so it's basically about a little over 650 Bitcoin. I think it's 653 point change to be exact. A little over 750 Ethereum, probably another $1 million worth of DeFi, which is composed of different decentralized finance playbooks that we use for a combination of yield, staking, voting, and some other things that are supportive of our ecosystem across our multi-screen as a service, loyalty and rewards program. That's kind of where we try to reward you for being you. You can go to Apple, iTunes App Store, or Google Play, download PHUN Wallet, which is an application. So PHUN Wallet. You can download it. It can reward you for being you. You can voluntarily opt in and provide as much or as little information as you want. You can discriminate brand by brand, and you are in charge of your digital identity. And if you choose to engage either in the physical world or the virtual world with a brand, then blockchain is used as a fully auditable, open, transparent ledger of all those interactions. And if your demographic or your interest is picked up in our customer data platform, then you get compensated. So that's kind of the nature of how all that works. But on Bitcoin and Ethereum, we are a big believer that that is the inflation protection. We are a big believer that the US dollar continues to print way too much money, way too much supply. And we don't want to see our corporate balance sheet, crushed based on inflation. We do share something with MicroStrategy and others who use it for the same purpose.
Okay. All right, great. Now we got most of the serious topics out of the way. I do want to push you a little bit, or just get greater understanding of the whole DWAC thing, right? You did the campaign for Trump in 2020, and what are the opportunities going forward, whether it's the campaign? Are there any opportunities with Truth Social, the website at all? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so what I can tell you, that's all public oriented things. We haven't done any formal announcements, but what I'll say is obviously, so we think of Truth Social as just a component of something larger, which is TMTG, which is a fully structured private company that has 3 areas of focus. One is Truth Social, that's very much dealing with social media. There's another basket, which is very news and content oriented, almost more like you would think about Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or any sort of direct to consumer OTT network. And then there's a third phase, which looks a lot more like what I would call AWS, Google Cloud, and infrastructure, which also has some intersections directly with Rumble. Obviously, Rumble right now wanted to first get out a platform, and they think about, okay, this is a safe ground for content creators against YouTube. But secondarily, obviously, what are they going to do? They're going to take the money, as their CEO talked about on yesterday's various news broadcasts and your show. They took $300 million from the SPAC, another $100 million in a pipe. And with that $400 million, what are they going to do? They're going to start engaging content creators, not in the area of advocacy and politics, but in all other verticals, ranging from just traditional entertainment to gaming to all sorts of other unique content creators. And they're just in the process of recently launching Rumble ads. So I think what you're going to see is that when you say DWAC to me, DWAC is kind of like, using Stellar Acquisition 3 as the SPAC that Phunware used, or CFVI as the SPAC that Rumble used. So I think about fun. They think about rum, and then nobody who talks about DWAC, it's not really DWAC. DWAC is the entity, but what's going on, that's TMTG, which has 3 phases of business. So one of the folks on our board is Ryan Costello. He is a former congressman. He has served and spent 4 years sharing lockers with Devin Nunes. Who's Devin Nunes? He obviously is the gentleman who became the CEO, leaving Congress, of TMTG. And obviously, there's a lot of interesting dynamics. We went through our SPAC when we were less controversial for having had the nerve, I guess, to license software to Donald Trump, as if selling an iPhone and Tim Cook or Michael Dell selling a server to Donald Trump would be controversial. We took a lot of heat for that. We're a software company. Of course, we're going to sell our software. We're awesome at mobile apps. Of course, we're going to show a kick-ass mobile experience, much like we have for the Olympic Games or the World Cup. Of course, we're going to do that for politics. So we're very proud of what we delivered. So what happens, right? We already went public through Stellar. We're now PHUN. Rumble finished its merger just last week, open for trading as RUM. So we have Fun and Rum, and we're going to now, whether we went public through a direct listing, an IPO, or a SPAC, No one cares anymore, right? We're just a public company. They're a public company. DWAC is a whole different kind of animal right now. And we don't comment too much other than just sort of public observations because the merger's not finished. They're not publicly trading. There isn't an official ticker symbol. Like all those things haven't happened. They're in their quiet period as they should be. But let's be real. I mean, when you look at the Securities and Exchange Commission, who's the head? Gary Gensler. What was Gary Gensler's former job? He was the CFO of what? Hillary Clinton's campaign. So, like, is it accidental that there's an awful lot of holdup of DWAC filings and TMTG filings with the SEC? Of course not, because it's political. So, you know, when you only have, like we're on the last extension before we closed our deal and went public, there's still activities to provide extensions of DWAC. But what do I really think is going on between me, you, and the fence post observer just sitting on the fence? Like, you don't think anyone's sitting on things at the SEC or just coming up with questions and responses back and forth? Because all you have to do is just not give an effective date on your registration statement. And guess what? Time passes, SPAC expires, and DWAC doesn't exist, and TMTG is still private. So do I think that there's an operational or regulatory reason as to why someone can't go public? Come on, give me a break. Not at all. That's just, do I want to put up barriers to prevent someone from getting public? So I think we'll be trying to move full steam ahead, just like Rumble's going to be full steam ahead. I think TMTG and DWAC are going to continue working together, and they're going to continue focused on getting through that process. And if you just told me, what do you think? Is it political? Is it not? I would say, of course it's political. Like, you really think it's that hard to get audited financials and really respond to all the questions? We took 8 months when we went through that process, from our first filing to getting an effective date. And we also were a guinea pig. We went through the first ever review by the blockchain and cryptocurrency part of the SEC that had never existed. So not only did we go through the traditional part, but we went through that and we did everything we needed. And then we got our effective date. But that process, it's by no means easy. It should be by no means guaranteed, but it's not like you're solving for nuclear physics or fission or fusion or teleportation. I mean, it's very basic stuff to then finally get a clearance with all the right risk factors for people to make their own adult decisions on, do I like the fact that they want to be more open or not? And that should be up to the investing public, I think.
Okay. All right. Great. That was awesome. We gotta turn that into a clip. I love it when you talk about DWAC and Rumble and a little bit of politics. Makes it fun. All right. But we got, do you have time for 2 more questions? From
Yeah,
the audience?
absolutely.
All right. We got a couple coming in here. Justin D. Gambles, have more large investors other than H.C. Wainwright shown interest? Also, can you touch on how you plan to compete with Google and Facebook on data protection?
Sure. On the first one, I would say that, so again, H.C. Wainwright is actually the investment bank that's running our ATM. We do participate in their financial conferences, but when you talk about institutional investors, over the last year, we more than doubled our institutional shareholder base. And if you look at the top holders of every public company on earth, you'll see 3 names: BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. 2 out of those 3 are now, 2 of the 3 largest shareholders, and the other one is in the top 5 or 6. We don't always get exactly the current information, but what we're excited is to see a lot of the big names are starting to buy. We are a part of the Russell 3000, so we get some of the index buying on the ETF by default. And then we get brand new, institutional funds and family offices that are starting to enter in positions and buy positions in Phunware. So our goal, if we could take what used to be 4%, is probably more like 10% institutional. We'd love to double it again in the next 12 months and get more to 20%. But at the end of the day, like, the reason I do these and Randall does these and our company is out there talking to retail all the time is because 90% of our shareholder base is retail. We have our shareholder meeting coming up October 14th. I would encourage any of you that have gotten your proxy statements to please vote. Vote however you want to do, but just participate. It used to be that broker dealers would aggregate all the votes. Now you actually have to go in one-off and actually do those votes. So I know we've sent out the materials. If you are a shareholder of record, please go vote. We encourage you to do so. Share your feedback, your opinions. We're here for you. And we expect to keep talking to financial conference after financial conference. We've done Needham when it was more crypto and blockchain oriented. November 1st to 3rd, I'll be out at the LA Blockchain Summit speaking. That'll be crypto and blockchain oriented. But we've done Roth Capital. That's coming up again in New York like it was in Southern California. That's all very traditional Wall Street. And we're going to continue to do that as we introduce the company both domestically and abroad. Now, on the question about Google and Facebook and data protection, that's a lot of fun for me because I would say, like everyone listening to this, we are the product. Facebook or Meta, more importantly, and Google and others, they are the data oligarchs. We are the product. They harvest our digital identity and all of our personal data, with or without our consent is secondary, and they monetize us. And no one out there getting monetized gets any of it. If you go buy their stock and hold it, you could be a beneficiary. Otherwise, you're just a harvested asset for them to make money. So the way we're going to compete with Google and Facebook on things like data protection is you will be in charge of you. You will get to own your digital identity. You will get to own your digital footprint, your mobile identity. You will decide venue by venue, brand by brand, and mobile application by mobile application, what you choose to share. And that could be nothing at all, or it could be everything. Depends if you value Starbucks one way, Home Depot another, Atlantis, Bahamas differently, MGM Grand, like take your pick. All these things get to be very, very interesting because Google and Facebook are frustrating everybody that buys media and advertising. Whether you're a corporation, a government, or an agency of record, you are wasting half your money. You just don't know which half. And when you use Google and Facebook's platform, especially all of Meta, inclusive of Instagram and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, guess what? If you are a buyer of campaign access to human beings, you waive your audit rights. You get no audit. They show you the fix and you just trust them because you're not allowed to audit it. What we do at Phunware is give you blockchain, a global ledger that is open, auditable, and fully transparent and public so that you will know what every interaction looks like. Because blockchain in the Bitcoin way, every 10 minutes will mine a block, it will post it to the blockchain, and it's a digital record of transactions from top to bottom of everything that just happened in the last 10 minutes. And you'll never get that from Google or Facebook. And they sure as heck don't share any of the economic value or benefit with you. So we're not worried about data protection. In fact, the more you see Facebook and Google and others dragged into Congress or in front of the European Commission, what you really find out is there is no data protection. They end up getting fined for exploiting your data, your identity, and they try to do it in gray areas and black areas or change terms of service. It's very opaque. And what we want to do is to simply be direct, candid, honest, transparent, and let you be yourself in whatever way you feel like, which is what your God-given right should be.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for that. We got one final question from Jacob Peterson. Alan and Randall, you mentioned before that your crypto ecosystem is blockchain agnostic. Could PhunToken and PhunCoin potentially run on multiple separate L1 blockchains at the same time? That is totally over my head, so go at it.
Yeah, so L1 blockchains, that means layer one. So let me use Bitcoin as an example. So the Bitcoin protocol would operate block by block by block every 10 minutes with proof of work. And you see all this consumption of energy to solve mathematical problems and puzzles, to authenticate and secure the network. And every 10 minutes, there's a block reward for those miners who do that work, and they can get rewarded for that activity to provide a blockchain for the Bitcoin protocol to operate on. There's a difficulty matrix. There's a hash rate, which is representative of the total compute power globally. And all of that combines with an incentive system to allow everyone to participate with a set of rules and no rulers, which is what's so wonderful about Bitcoin. Layer 2, or an L2, would be like the Lightning Network. So when you think of Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Venmo, all the computations and transactions at scale, millions and millions and millions per second, the Lightning Network that sits on top of blockchain like Bitcoin, that would actually facilitate end-to-end global rails, if you will, that allow me to send money to Ben, or me to send money to some family member out in Poland. I can do whatever I want, and it could be in whatever currency I want, just leveraging the Bitcoin infrastructure at layer 1 to transact at layer 2. And you don't even have to know anything about crypto or blockchain. So for PhunToken and PhunCoin, both are currently ERC20 tokens, which are digital assets that run on the Ethereum blockchain. We are agnostic in that we use Ethereum now because it's been proven to work. We have not seen crashes. We have not seen security breaches to the extent that we've seen on blockchains like Cardano or any number of others, Solana. And what we expect is that ultimately I would love for PhunToken and PhunCoin to operate on the Bitcoin network at layer 1 and the Lightning Network at layer 2. But the Bitcoin network was originally not designed with smart contracts, which is what Ethereum has. Others are trying to replicate and provide these new protocols. I don't think the world really needs more protocols. They just need stuff that works, is not hacked, is not insecure. And I hate proof of stake, which is what Ethereum just went to. So we're still using it for now. Proof of stake means he who has the gold rules, not, just following the golden rule. It looks like fiat. It looks like central banks and governments and bankers and politicians. And if you have more Ethereum than the next guy, you decide what the rules are on the fly. You change them for your benefit. You dictate the rewards go to you. That is not what we like. So we would prefer proof of work, and we would prefer a blockchain that is going to have all participants around the world on equal access and equal footing. And I think Bitcoin with smart contracts is most likely going to be the best end state. But for now, we operate just fine on ERC20 and Ethereum.
Okay, excellent. Hope that made sense to some of you out there. Didn't make any sense to me, but anyway, Alan, I appreciate some catalysts you're talking about in the coming future. When is the next earnings report?
Should be mid-November. Usually we'll close here at the end of the month. Q3, it's about a 45-day, give or take. So I expect kind of mid-November will be our next announcement. And thereafter that, we'll finish the year, have a 10K for the annual report for 2022. That one wouldn't get submitted till the end of March.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any final words? Anything else you wanted to mention that you didn't?
Yeah, only final thing is I would say keep paying attention to announcements that we'll be putting out. Any sort of information that you have interest in, please take advantage of investors.phunware.com. We're very active with our IR and PR. We're very responsive to not just institutional investors, but retail. We really love the opportunity, Ben, when you provide a forum for us to be able to share directly to the public. And, I think you do a great job of scrutinizing things. I think you should call bullshit. I think everyone out there that is getting FUD and just complete nonsense propaganda deserves to just get information and have people tell it like it is. We know it's hard out there. We know that a lot of work is required. We're going to work very hard as we have been. We're going to continue to do so going forward. And we're going to be as open, candid, and transparent in our filings as we are in our earnings call and transcript, as we are with these kind of forums, because we're here for you.
Thank you so much, Alan Knitowski, from CEO of PHUN. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. And for everyone else, we're going to hang on after this and do a little more analysis of Rum stock, and then we'll call it a day in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye.